Hello there. What do you hear? What do you say? Today, I'm just going to be talking about the state of the channel and where I want to go moving forward. So, I've been thinking a lot about what I want to do with this channel. I've had like a lot of ideas and a lot of thoughts for a while now, but the problem with me is that I generally tend to have too many interests. I sort of have like a really big trouble sort of like narrowing down and focusing on one sort of given thing. So I think that in future, I think I should try to like sort of like communicate succinctly and shortly like what I want the channel to be about. So I think sort of in a sort of nutshell, I think I want the channel to be like self-help and sort of self-education through the medium of games, right? So communicating science and philosophical ideas through the mediums of like video games and that sort of thing. I think that's what I want the channel to be about. And games, I'm using in like a very sort of broad context. I just mean something like some interactive medium where there's like a win condition, right? So I think that I want to do this for a lot of reasons. One, I'm really passionate about science communication. Two, I'm really passionate about game development. Three, I'm really passionate about like YouTube. And I think this is a way of sort of combining all of those sort of interests. I don't think there's a lot of people doing it, and I like initially I had some sort of reservations about like saying it because, well, you know, if you sort of say it out there, what if there's someone out there who sort of steals your idea? But I think this is a very silly way of thinking. The more I think about it, right? Because you can have the best idea in the world, right? If the execution isn't good, then no one's going to be interested in it. So if there's like another YouTuber that does this better than the niche that I'm going to do, then that just means that my execution wasn't the best, right? At the end of the day, like YouTube is a market, right? And when you sort of think about it, you're sort of when you watch a YouTube video, right, you're giving someone arguably like the most important resource you have, time, right? You're giving them your attention, right? If I was to lose thousands of pounds, I could always get it back. If I was to spend thousands of hours on a given topic, and I could never get that time back, right? No matter how hard I tried. So I think what I want to do is I want to sort of use this YouTube channel as a sort of platform to sort of like talk more about like video game development, talk more about like educational content, and talk more about like various ideas within like the mathematical sciences and also like science more broadly, right? I don't really have like that much familiarity when it comes to like biology and chemistry, for example, but I do have like a decent amount of knowledge of like physics and mathematics. So I think maybe for my next video, I might talk about a particular theorem, and then I might do like a simple game sort of illustrating that sort of principle, like just something like easy and simple that you could sort of download and then you could just sort of test the results. That might be like an interesting idea. So I think that I also would like to start like a devlog. Basically, sort of like illustrate and like it would basically be a game that sort of illustrates like certain scientific principles and practices and communicate how science works via the game. And you can sort of do the same idea for philosophy as well. Although I think I want it to be predominantly about science. I think also talking about the sort of games themselves, like what makes a game, what makes a game fun, like sort of meta perspectives on games. That's going to be something that I'm pretty passionate about as well. Um, so, okay, here maybe like a sort of example would be something like how much does the universe weigh and how would philosophy change that answer, right? So maybe what you could do is something like, okay, well, you sort of like use physics and sort of think about, okay, what's the concept of a weight? What is it in relation to? What's the units? That sort of thing, right? And then you would use sort of like philosophy and something like that to say like, okay, well, what is it? What is the entirety of the universe? Like, what does that actually mean, right? Does it just mean all of space time? Does it include like all the unobservable entities? Are we including like unobservables as well? Like what exactly is like the confines of that thing, right? And maybe so like a game equivalent is sort of saying, okay, well, here's like the various given inputs, right? If you get like this various given output, you might get like this particular model, right? So maybe what you might do is like sort of compare and contrast like the various models, right? And then maybe what you could do is sort of say, okay, well, you might like be given like ask the question and say, okay, well, if that's and depending on whether or not you get the question right, then you win. Right, quote unquote, right? Um, right now, that's like a little bit half baked, right? But it's just the sort of like illustration of what I want the channel to be about. Maybe like another question might be something like what makes the sciences themselves sort of distinct, right? One answer I've heard is like sort of like information compression and like sort of degrees of abstraction, which isn't like a bad idea, right? So maybe what you could do is you could have like a sort of platformer, right? And so initially at like the very top level, right, it's basically like humans, right? So basically like our day-to-day sort of lives, like the sort of macro scale picture of the world, the sort of world talked about, described by uh, Wilfred Seller, basically the manifest image of the world, right? The world how we sort of see it day to day, right? And then what you could do is like gradually you could go deeper and deeper down in like the sort of dungeon, right? And then you would start to see sort of like the you would see psychology, sociology, right? And then you would go further down. You would see like neuroscience. You would see like biochemistry, and then you would start to see physics, and then fundamentally maybe you might get like mathematics, right? And that's like just a sort of like that's like one of the many ideas I have, right? I I think that probably the most important quality that I sort of need when it comes to YouTube is probably just discipline, right? Because I think it can be very disheartening initially to sort of see like 0 views, 0 subscribers, and you don't get any growth within like the past 6 months, 12 months, 8 months, right? And that can be very disheartening. But the simple fact of the matter is there's going to be a point in time where that will change, right? Where you will start to get more views, where you still will start to get more traction. Because the thing about YouTube is that it's not really linear, right? It's not like I'm gonna get 1 view here, 1 view there, 1 view here, 1 view there, right? This entire year, I've made it my yearly goal to try to get 10K subscribers. I think that is very ambitious of me, right? Maybe I won't get it, right? In fact, in all likelihood, probably I won't, but I'm going to try to get it anyway. So that's my goal, right? But the thing is that I think once you've reached that initial milestone, right, I think it's very easy to sort of compound success at that point, right? So this one year, right, let's say hypothetically, like at the end of the year, I only get like, I don't know, 1K subscribers, right? The next year after that, I might get 10K. The next year after that, I might get 100K, then like a million, then maybe like 5 million 5 years from now or something like that, right? Now, obviously, that's like a rough sketch, but the thing to keep in mind with any sort of like YouTube channel is that it's exponential, right? It's not linear, right? It's not as though like you're going to be doing things incrementally, right? But the thing about growth is that you don't see the big things. You're not going to have like one sort of dramatic thing happening all at once that's going to suddenly like revolutionize everything, right? If that's sort of the sort of lesson I've learned is that when it comes to success, when it comes to achieving your goals, it's not going to be big. It's not going to be pretty. Because the thing is that all success really is, when you sort of fundamentally sort of distill it down to its core, is sort of doing the right little things every day as opposed to doing the wrong little things every day, right? So let me elaborate a little bit on that. So today, when I woke up, right, I had like a glass of water, I went for a run, I read for a little bit. Now, these are things that are very easy not to do, right? It's very easy to not work out. It's very easy to like, like not go to the gym. It's very easy not to do these things, right? It's also relatively easy to do them, right? A lot of people suffer from like an uphill battle, so to speak, right? But the thing is that I think once you initially start something, for me anyway, it's very easy to continue. But I think the sort of realization is that if you want to be really good at something, right, you sort of have to sort of like pick a time block, right, and just do it, right? So for me, I was considering going to sleep. I was sort of like initially reluctant to post this video, but I promised myself I'm going to be uploading 2 videos a week, right? Now, I want to get better at animation. I obviously want to get better at coding. I want to do so many things, right, with respect to this channel. But initially, I'm just going to have to just be content with the fact that, okay, all right, I've set myself this goal, right? I have to achieve this goal, right? Because once you start to get that momentum going, I think it's very difficult to sort of like stop initially, right? So for example, like imagine you have like a 100-day streak on any given task, right? You don't want to break it on the 101st one because you think, you know what, let me just get to it, right? And then you don't want to break it on the 102nd and so forth and so on, right? So sort of in conclusion, sort of wrapping up, right? I want this channel to basically be about like sort of science communication through like the medium of games. And I think that I want to try to make a game a week. That's, again, I think is something that's pretty ambitious, but I think that initially I didn't even think I would be able to make like 1 video a month because I was so reluctant to sort of talk and sort of, I always worried that like other people wouldn't care what I had to think or say. But I think sort of realizing that just going out there and just communicating and just being I'm trying to think of like a word to describe this, pleasantly indifferent, right? So if people watch my videos and if people enjoy my content, that's wonderful, that's great. But if they don't, then all right, that's fine. I'll have learned like a lot of lessons as a result of like this YouTube channel and sort of what I want to do with it. I think that on the whole, I'm really, really glad I started doing this. I started this channel probably like a year ago, but I've only really started taking it seriously like a year later at this point. But that's the thing. There's a saying that I'm very, very fond of saying, and the best time to plant a tree is 10 years ago, and the second best time is now. So with that in mind, I'll leave it at that. Hope you have a great day, and then this is Sandkazer logging off.